Welcome back to the training on the HUD PVV and PHA owned units provision. My name is Amaris Rodriguez. I'm a housing program specialist with the Office of Housing Voucher Programs. And during this segment, I'm going to walk you through the responsibilities of independent entities. So let's get started. Which entity can perform the independent entity functions in a situation where a project is considered PHA owned, as it was defined in the segment that talks about PHA owned units? So an independent entity can be the unit of general local government or a HUD approved independent entity. If the PHA itself is the unit of general local government or an agency of such government, then the next level of general local government may perform such functions without HUD approval. So for example, if the PHA itself is the city or an agency of the city, then the county or the state government may perform the functions of an independent entity without the need of HUD approval. The PHA may choose to have a HUD-approved entity serve as the independent entity, even if there is another level of local government that may perform such functions without HUD approval. So that is up to the PHA. What if there is no next level of general local government? So for example, let's say the PHA is the state or part of the state. In those cases, the independent entity must be a HUD-approved public or private entity other than the PHA or the unit of general local government of which the PHA is a part. Now let's go through an overview of the characteristics of an independent entity. The independent entity must have no legal connection to the PHA, no financial connection to the PHA except for compensation for services performed in connection to PHA-owned units, no other connection to the PHA that would cause an improper influence on the independent entity, and the independent entity must be able to perform its functions in an unbiased manner. So in summary, or in general, the independent entity must have no ties to the PHA that would cause an undue influence to the independent entity in its performance of its functions relating to a particular project that is considered PHA owned. Now let's talk about what are the independent entity functions. And I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what are those functions. However, Table 1 of Attachment B of the implementation notice gives you a little bit more detail about those functions and their regulatory basis. So the independent entity determines rent reasonableness, or in the case of the homeownership option only, it determines the reasonableness of the sale price and financing. The independent entity inspects units, and in the case of the homeownership option, it also reviews the inspection report prepared by the family's independent inspector. The independent entity also reviews the contract of sale for homeownership option families. And for HCV or Housing Choice Voucher families, the independent entity assists the family in negotiating rent with the owner. The independent entity in the context of the PVV program reviews the PVV selection process. It establishes the term of the initial and any renewal PVV HAP contract, and it establishes PVV contract rents, including initial rent to owner and redetermined rent to owner. The independent entity also communicates the results of inspection and rent reasonableness determinations. Okay, so let's get a little more in depth on the review of the PVV selection process. As it relates to this particular process, both competitive and non-competitive selections must be reviewed by the local HUD Office of Public Housing or the independent entity. Before the PHA may finalize the selection process, the HUD field office or the independent entity must provide a letter stating that the PHA-owned units were appropriately selected based on the selection policies and procedures specified in the PHA's administrative plan. The PHA selection procedures must apply to all PVV proposals and must be designed in a manner that does not effectively eliminate the submission of proposals for non-PHA owned units or give undue preferential treatment, for example, additional points to PHA owned units. So PHA owned units and other projects have to be in an even playing field. That's in a gist what that means. Okay, so let's go through what are the submission requirements for the review of the PVV selection process. So these are the documents that the PHA has to submit to either the independent entity or the HUD field office, whoever is reviewing this PVV selection process. First, all proposals submitted in connection with the particular selection, including proposals submitted for non-competitive selections in accordance with 24 CFR 983.51b2. A copy of the relevant section of the PHA's administrative plan. You don't have to submit your entire administrative plan. You only have to submit the part of your plan that discusses the PVV selection procedures. A copy of any standard operating procedures, worksheets, checklists, or other work product used in the selection process. If the proposal was selected competitively, a copy of the solicitation. For non-competitive selections, a copy of the proposal for the previous competition and any award letter. If for whatever reason these documents are not retrievable, the ones connected to the non-competitive selection, then the PHA may submit other documentation that basically demonstrates that the requirements for non-competitive selections under 24 CFR 983.51b2 were met. And any other documentation deemed necessary by HUD or the independent entity must also be submitted as part of the review of the PVV selection process. Okay, so now let's get into PVV rents. The independent entity determines the initial rent to owner and redetermined rent to owner under the PVV program for PHA owned units in accordance with the same requirements as for any other PVV units. And PVV rent determination requirements are found in regulation under 24 CFR Part 983 Subpart G. The rent to owner is redetermined by written notice from the independent entity to the PHA specifying the amount of the redetermined rent. The independent entity notice of the rent adjustment constitutes an amendment of the rent to owner specified in the HAB contract. Such amendments must be documented by a signed exhibit to the HAB contract. Okay, now let's get into inspections. The 2 points that I wanted to make on inspections and independent entities is that the PHA must provide families with up-to-date contact information for the independent entity and explain that a family requesting an inspection of the unit makes such a request directly to the independent entity, not the PHA. Appendix 4 of the notice provides more information on housing choice voucher, homeownership, and PVV inspection requirements. Now for RAD conversions and independent entities, I should note that the independent entity redetermines rent for RAD PVV units, not the PHA. The independent entity does that. And that is that the independent entity is responsible for conducting the rent reasonableness determination and for processing OCAF or operating cost adjustment factor adjustments for RAD PVV units. The review of the PHA selection process by an independent entity is waived for RAD PVV conversions specifically. In terms of the HUD approval process, HUD changed the existing policy for independent entity review and approval by superseding the requirements established in a previous PIH notice, that is PIH notice 2015-05, and those requirements were listed in section 3 of that notice. That notice has been superseded by this implementation notice. So previously that noted, the PIH Notice 2015-5 required a PHA to submit documentation that demonstrated or supported the independent nature of the parties' relationship. With the publication of this notice, PHAs must instead submit a joint certification. And now let's go through a little bit more detail about the HUD approval process. So what are PHAs required to submit as part of the HUD approval process for independent entities? A joint PHA and independent entity certification dated and signed by the executive director or equivalent position of both the PHA and the independent entity, which that certifications must clearly state the name, address, and point of contact for both the PHA and the proposed independent entity. And it has to certify to the autonomous relationship between the PHA and the independent entity. When is the PHA to submit that certification to the HUD field office? The PHA has to submit that before the function to be performed by the entity takes place. And just the consideration in determining when to submit that independent entity for approval is the functions that the independent entity will perform, whether the PHA will use more than one independent entity for different functions, the HUD processing time, and how all of these elements interplay with the expected action. So for example, if your agency may want to consider submitting an independent entity that will be conducting inspections for PVV PHA-owned projects early in the process to avoid any delays in the execution of the PVV HAP contract. And other considerations in this, as it pertains to the HUD approval process, is that the HUD Office of Public Housing, the field office, retains the discretion to accept the certification on its face or to request additional information or use information available to the HUD field office to question the validity of that certification. In terms of whether your agency or PHAs can use different independent entities to perform different functions, the answer is yes. However, in such cases, the PHA must submit for approval each independent entity it plans to use and identify the function the entity will perform. PHAs are not required, but may submit all independent entities at the same time to the HUD field office. Now, what if your agency is planning to use an independent entity that was previously approved by the HUD Field Office of Public Housing? Do you have to go through the process of HUD approval? And the answer is no. But if your agency is using that that previously approved independent entity to perform a function other than the function for which that entity was previously approved, then you must certify in writing to HUD that you will use a previously HUD-approved independent entity to perform a new function and identify what function that will be. Also, the independent entity has to be qualified to perform that new function. So for example, if your PHA was previously approved to use a law firm as an independent entity to review the PVV selection process, it may not be appropriate for that law firm to perform inspections, for example. So that's what that means. Okay, in terms of how to pay independent entities for their services, the eligible sources of funds are either Housing Choice Voucher at administrative fees, Housing Choice Voucher administrative fee reserves, or if you're an MTW PHA, you may use other sources if the use of those sources to pay for independent services is consistent with your MTW plan. Ineligible sources of funds include other HUD program receipts and families. So you cannot pass the cost of an independent entity service to the family. And that concludes this segment on PHA-owned units and independent entities. Thank you very much.